Welcome to another edition of Inside Guyana. Today our cameraman is Ravi, and with me in the studio is also our producer Prakash. Here we want to welcome our guest today, a special personality, a prominent Guyanese, and he's also a prominent American. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Rohan Somar. He's a system chairman of the Department of Emergency Medicine and the Sinclair's Health System in Denville, New Jersey. He's also the medical director of, the
Denville campus.
Denville campus, sorry. Dr. Samar holds many portfolios, including chairman of the United States of America Alliance for Change organization, political organization in Guyana. So ladies and gentlemen, we are very happy to have him here in the studio today. And that's a very brief introduction. He has a lot more to say about himself. So I would like to welcome Dr. Samar to our program Inside Guyana. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Rudy. It was a pleasure being here.
Well, first of all, you heard a little introduction here, and I get confused because, you know, you're a board of directors, you're a trustee on that, and then you're all sorts of things, an MBA recently from Harvard. So, oh my God, so you then become a politician.
No, I'm not a politician, Rudy, but thank you.
But you're not a politician, so what? Are you declining the position of chairman of the APNU-AFC already?
I'm just a guy from New Jersey trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, where about in Guyana you're from, doctor?
I was born in Bushlat Village in Quarantine. Migrated with my family in the late 70s to the United States. And since then, I've been pursuing my education. Did my undergrad study at Seton Hall, my MBA at University of Massachusetts, not Harvard.
Okay.
Just a correction. My medical training at Mount Sinai. And since then, I've been practicing emergency medicine for the last 20 years and has been in management and leadership position throughout that time as well. My focus has been working with people and taking care of people. Relative to Guyana, since I left that country, I never went back for about 30 years. And the only thing you heard was from your family, your mom and dad, don't go back, it's dangerous. I traveled all over the world with the US Air Force and on other matters, but never went back. I actually only went back after I met the founders of the AFC in 2005, Raphael Trotman, Kamaraj Ramjatan, and Sheila Holder. They came and they were talking about the ideas of forming a new movement to move away from the old divisive politics of the two dominant parties at that time. And I didn't go and visit with them at all the first time around because I didn't know anything about Guyanese politics, nor was I interested in it. But they came back, and they were very persistent through a good friend of mine who actually founded the movement in New York, Mr. Sanko Nairu, who had recently passed. He says, Doc, you got to come meet these guys. So I went, met with them, and it didn't take too long to realize that these guys were real in what they were trying to do. You get a sense that they wanted to move the country to a different place from the trajectory that it was going relative to the divisive politics and two parties having a stranglehold on the population and perpetuating racism and fear and all those things to maintain their position. And so I started working with them, getting involved, and through that exposure, I actually went to Guyana for the first time after 32 years.
So you are from a medical doctor, member of the United States Air Force, and a prominent personality here, very successful. You had no need to really wonder for anything, and then you decided to suddenly be influenced by these politicians, and then you went back to Guyana. And what did you do in Guyana?
Well, when I arrived there, you get to see what was happening. After 30 years, I went back to my old village. And
what did you see?
What I saw was a dichotomy. I saw a place where you have the haves and the have-nots. I grew up in Bushlat Village, and most of the homes were of similar nature, ranging from a mud wall house to a little shack with a tent, if you will, zinc roof. But when I went back after 32 years or so, I saw palatial buildings on one lot, and right next to it, a family with barely a roof over their heads. And you ask yourself, why? After 32 years of time passing by. And what you see happening in Guyana is a system where those who are not able to get into the channels of influence, if you will, stays where they are and have not progressed at all whatsoever. You almost see what I call an oppressive mass by currently what's happening. These folks, education, the opportunities are not there for them. Infrastructure is not there to support them. Jobs, meaningful jobs.
You mean the oppressed?
Oppressed mass,
okay.
I call them. And so what we do in the diaspora with that, we send stuffed barrels and holidays and this and that to our family. And you ask yourself, what happens to the family next door who doesn't have a family in America or Canada or in England? And that's what you see happening. It's happening today. I think in a country like Guyana, with all its riches, should not be in that state. It should be a state where, when you look at developing countries across the planet, be in a state of progressive, a track of progressiveness, and we're not seeing that.
Dr. Samar, so you were concerned about improving the conditions of living of the masses in Guyana when you went back, and that prompted you to do something more constructive, I would guess, and that is why you decided to get involved and become the chairman of the United States of America branch of the Alliance for Change political party in Guyana.
Well, let me back up. What I was interested in doing is no longer try to put out the little fires of what was happening in the country. When you look at when there's a problem that exists, when you do a root cause analysis and you try to figure out why is this happening. And what you find that was happening there is because of the centralized institutional, what I call institutional oppression of the masses. I felt that was a main reason why you have these situations going on in Guyana. The illiteracy rate is among the highest. Poverty, when you look at any matrix, reasonable matrix, international matrix of progress in society, you're not finding it. Suicide, we've just got the most dubious distinction of being the country with the highest suicide rate on the planet. You look at things of corruption index measured by international bodies. Guyana is leading in those areas. Poverty index. So you ask yourself, well, what can you do? Do you continue to send barrels and try to put out the little fires? Or do you look at where you can have an impact at the root cause of what's happening and try to have some meaningful change there? And when we look at what the root causes are, it's the political environment, the leadership, the governance, and everything that falls from that. So I find that it's the current administration being in there for 23 years is not really doing what it needs to be done to maximize the wealth and happiness of the entire nation. It's done selectively, in my view, and only those who are closest to the government and influence and so on are ones that are having access to progressiveness. It ought to be, everyone should have equal access to anything that's available to them.
So that's the point you're making here, or if you want to say point or accusation of discrimination by the government. Is that so?
Well, I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything. I'm just making an observation of what I see, and what I see are some of the reasons for what's happening and what are some of the things that can be done to help bring about a transformation of the country wherein everyone will have an opportunity, an equal opportunity to perform at their best. And that goes to building the infrastructure to cause that to happen. Education, healthcare, security, investment opportunities, training. All these things need to be part and parcel of the solution to allow everyone in the country to have an equal opportunity as towards liberty.
Dr. Samar, you are aware that elections are going to be in Guyana or will be held on Monday, May the 11th, 2015. You have been contributing towards the coalition, I understand, from the perspective of the Alliance for Change joining the APNU, a Partnership for National Unity. And they have now a coalition party going together to the elections that contest against the incumbent People's Progressive Party, Civic. Why is it now that they've decided to have a coalition?
That's a very good question, Rudy. But before I answer it, I just want to touch on one more point. What is it that the diaspora organizations can do to help Guyana? The organization that I'm part of, that I actually was elected as chairperson, we not only see ourselves as a support group to generate resource, financial as well as material, to these organizations, the AFCs and others, who are trying to transform the nation. We are here outside also trying to take the message to all the external stakeholders. For example, our organization meets regularly with the U.S. State Department, Amnesty International, the UN, the World Bank, and all these international organizations that has serious activities or interests in the country. So we're able to take the message of what's happening in Guyana, as well as in addition to the normal channels of information they're getting. And we find that's been very helpful, and it's very appreciated because they're getting a different perspective. What does the diaspora think about what's going on in the country? But now to your question, I think the timing of the coalition is the right time. And let me tell you why. The AFC was created some 10 years ago, and its primary principle there was to move away from the old racially divisive politics to have a more inclusive presence where everyone can participate in it. And the first word in its name, the alliance. And in doing so, it intends to create alliance. In fact, the first alliance that was created was with the three leaders. They all came from different parties. Camarade Ramjatan was from the PPP, Raphael Trotman from the PNC, and Sheila Holder from the WPA. And in its trajectory, it's been making history at every turn. First election, they got 7 seats in Parliament. Second election, similar amount of seats, but we were able to gain...
They got 5, I think, at first.
7.
7?
If I'm not mistaken. Second election, similar gains, but we're also able to have the speakership of the House. And more importantly, it prevented any one of the other competing parties to not gain the majority in Parliament, singularly, as well as no one getting the majority of the votes. And similarly, in the trajectory of the APNU, it was created during the last election cycle, moving away from the old paradigm of racially divisive politics from one party to more of an inclusive alliance. APNU is, when it was formed, if I'm not mistaken, was a total of 5 or 6 political parties together. And so they are looking towards the future in a more inclusive way. And when we look at what's happening now, this time, we believe that those founding principles of being inclusive, joining with each other, is the time. And in the discussion leading up to this, I will tell you, the AFC also talked with the PPP about joining in an alliance to move this country forward in a more unified way. But I won't characterize the response we got from the PPP.
Right.
And so with that, discussion ensued, and we came to an agreement where we feel it's a fair agreement that sets the foundation, the framework for operations, how we will manage the country if the coalition were to win.
Dr. Samar, the 2 parties that came together in the coalition have signed something called the Commonwealth Accord. Would you be able to tell our viewers some of the details of that accord? Is it going to work? A lot of the, especially the Indo-Guyanese in Berbice, I think, are very concerned that the AFC, that got a lot of the support from that region in Guyana, is now going to join up with the APNU, the major participant in that coalition, APNU coalition, is the People's National Congress. And they seem to be concerned about that. And, there's some talks going around that, this should not have been done. And what guarantee is there that the coalition would not suffer in terms of like the AFC being discriminated against by the bigger part there, which is the PNC?
Rudy, that's a very good question. And this agreement, in my view, has been the best kept secret. And I'm not sure why of that. But what I want to say, I'll spend some time explaining exactly what is in there. And hopefully it would illustrate the workings of this agreement that will cause folks to not be fearful of it. And so the principle going into the agreement were along these lines. You want to have an alliance where the operations, the relationship, the governance is open, it is transparent, it will be held accountable, and it is inclusive. Also, which is critically important, that it has its own internal checks and balance, and it addresses the powers of the executive presidency from day one. So this agreement, called the Cummings-Berg Agreement, details the relationship along several levels. So I'll pick them off one by one. First, at a governance level, calls for the president and a prime minister as we currently have. But in addition, it calls for 3 vice presidents. 2 of those vice presidents will be from the AFC. 1 will be from the APNU coalition. In terms of addressing that you'd have a working relationship in a unified way and no singular individual be able to abuse power, immediately that's been agreed upon should the coalition win, you'll have rebalancing of the powers of the presidency and the prime minister position. Specifically, we're talking about the president will still be the president until the Constitution obtained in an executive manner, but he will be essentially responsible for, and I'll read them off for you here, the appointment of the constitutional...
Is that from the accord?
The accord, absolutely.
Okay.
The appointment of the constitutional positions. He'll be responsible primarily for foreign affairs, international relations, and the non-commercial treaties, as well as national security policies. New is the balance of power that's going to be delegated to the prime minister from day one. And these include to be responsible for all domestic affairs and cabinet, chairing the cabinet.
All domestic affairs.
Domestic affairs and chairing the cabinet. He will be the person recommending ministerial appointments, recommending the structure of ministries, as well as heads of agencies and non-constitutional commissions. He's also going to be responsible for domestic security. This is at a governmental executive level. So immediately you're seeing an agreement signed by the two parties, wherein the management, the governance of the country, it ain't going to be done by an individual. It's going to be done by a team already. Now, at a cabinet level, the agreement calls for a 60%, 40% split. 60% of cabinet members to be appointed by the APNU coalition, 40% of members to be appointed by the AFC coalition. In addition to this, we have agreed that we will go and look for any able-bodied person who is competent and not corrupt from the PPP to join this government. It's in our agreement. It's in our manifesto.
Do we have such people here?
I don't know, but we will look. And if you find anyone who is sincere about good governance and who's capable and who is not corrupt, we will invite them to participate, along with folks who would be competing for those positions, to be on the inclusive side. At a parliamentary level, the agreement calls for the AFC, win or lose, to be guaranteed 12 seats in Parliament, and this is an important number. What that allows us to do is, in the event, and you asked a question earlier, how can we ensure accountability and no one marginalizing anybody else? It gives, that's a number that gives the AFC, or APNU for that matter with their complement, that if the powers are abused and not carried out as directed, as agreed to, any one of those parties can call a no confidence vote under current administration and get them out, if you will.
I mean, they have to now join with the PPP.
Well, if one person is behaving bad, exactly. So you have in this construct an internal checks and balance where if agreed to language is not being carried out, you call a no confidence motion. Internal checks and balance. But the whole idea, though, is to have, and importantly, if there is a dispute among the coalition members, AFC and or APNU, there's going to be a body created independent of the two parties, similar to what we did with leader of the list appointment. It was not from it was not an AFC person, nor was it an APNU person. It was an independent person from the civic community who will step in. And so you'll have a commission that will help oversee the management or the happenings or the relationship with an AFC or APNU coalition government.
Yeah, it sounds very constructive to me. I must say that. And indeed, when you told me there just now that all domestic affairs and appointment to all cabinet positions will be in the hands of Mr. Moses Dagabutu and not the president, it is indeed something that we are waiting to see happen, if that is the case.
I'll actually have a copy uploaded to you, as well as a copy of the manifesto for you.
No, what I was trying to say is the paper is paper. It's on a piece of paper. You want to see it implemented.
Got it.
In real life, and then that will bring indeed change and happiness. Now, on that point,
just on that one point, part of the reason why I'm involved in all this is precisely that. My primary goal in this whole thing is really to see good people do the right thing for the right reasons, and will fight like a Dickens if it's not happening.
Yeah, well, Dr. Samar, indeed, I'm sure the Guyanese and everyone watching this program here are going to be very happy to see what you said there materialize. And they might hold you accountable.
I'm fine with that.
Because once a medical doctor of your stature and caliber trained in and worked in the U.S. Armed Forces and have been in the United States and trained here for so many years, you're recommending something. It has to be good. So you're putting your neck in the block there, sir.
Well, let's hope no sharp object falls real quick.
You might have to perform a surgery in you, a political surgery, I mean. Dr. Samar, the theme here and your coalition is the unity and love. What happened? We never had unity and love before? Is this something new? I don't think so.
Well, I'm not sure if we ever had unity in Guyana. I think, and I'm not a historian here, and I'm too young to live the old days of the old ills from the different sides. But from what I know is that I think the only time we had real unity in Guyana is when we fought together to win independence, around that period in our history. Since then, from what has occurred, you've seen a division along the lines of the racial divide, and it's been primarily perpetuated by the two older parties, if you will. So
your unity here in your slogan really is referring to political unity and racial unity, is that correct?
Absolutely, and that's key. It's a foundation that we want to bring this divide that's been plaguing the nation for the last 40, 50 years under both administration together, and have it such that then everyone, irrespective of the race, the color, the creed, the religion, where they come from, whether an Amerindian, an Indo-Guyanese, an Afro-Guyanese, of mixed race, where you can feel that now your government is part of you, and you can be part of that government.
Dr. Samar, now that you spoke about the Königsberg Accord, you gave us, you elaborated somewhat, and you spoke about unity and love. It all sounds so good. Let us get down to the more practical thing. How do you think, or what do you think might prevent the coalition from governing in accordance with their manifesto? What are some of the things they intend to do so that they can govern in accordance with that manifesto?
Well, Rudy, that's a very good question. When you look at merging of cultures or in any level or any country, whether it's a merging of two businesses or merging of different entities, one of the key challenges is how you merge a culture of those entities. Here you have two political organizations primarily.
It's like a marriage.
Exactly. But the thing that holds them together, it will be that very thing that brought them together, that is alliance. And as they got married, as this marriage has been started, if you will, their whole purpose of getting married now is to stay married and put the country in a different track. Is it going to be challenging? Without question. Are you going to have issues of differences by different individuals as things move? Without question. Our job is to bring to bear the resources, the skill sets, the guidance to help them work through issues and challenges as they come, as you would need to do if you're doing a merger with a different company right now in the United States or in part of the world. The thing that I'm comforted about is when you talk to the key leaders, and I actually met Mr. Granger one-on-one while he's in Jersey. We spent quite an amount of time sitting down just like you and I are sitting down, so we have a good conversation. Because my job was, I wanted to know who this person was as opposed to just reading about this person. And what I found in him was, he's a quite funny guy when you talk to him up in person.
When you say funny, what do you mean?
Very personable.
Oh, okay.
You think, someone running for president is all, boom, 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 regimented and so on, which he is as a military leader.
He's not stuffed up.
But he's a very person. We can have a good conversation with him. We talked about a wide range of issues. And what I walked away from that meeting was, here's a gentleman who's at a stage of his life, who's doesn't need to do anything else, similar to Moses Nagamuntu or Kamraj Ramjatan or any other key.
Or yourself.
Well, okay. But you're doing it for a purpose, and that purpose is serving and giving back to the nation that gave you or brought you into this planet, if you will. And that's their only motivation. It ain't for personal power, because there's no personal power. In fact, this whole thing about personal power is misnown. It's actually personal responsibility. So the key leaders are committed to seeing this transformation through. They're not interested in this for what's in it for them at this stage of their lives. They're in it for what's in it for all of us together, especially the people. They want to get the nation back on track so that the next generation can start continuing in that format.
Briefly, you used a word there, transformation, and another term you used there after that is that back on track. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit more what you really mean by those two?
Well, when I talk about transformation, I'm referring to the current trajectory of where...
From what to what?
Current trajectory where the country is going. When you look at every aspect of current governance, whether it be the infrastructure building, healthcare system, job creation, equal job creation, the ability for the population to have a good education and moving up together. You're not seeing that. And you have a government who's been in power for 23 years. So you have to ask yourself why that's not happening. Is it because they don't care, they're not able to? I'm not sure which one, but things are not progressing in the trajectory that it needs to be. So you can duke it out one-on-one with anybody about specific issues, but when you look at the overall trajectory of the way the nation is going, we're going downwards more so than even stay afloat on several levels. So when I talk about transformation, we're looking at transforming the entire infrastructure to begin that change, as well as key is in the governance of the nation.
Dr. Samar, as a medical doctor, you know that in order to, before you prescribe any medication to the patient, or in order to, before you can do any kind of surgery, or you have to examine the patient properly, and you have to make a diagnosis of the patient, and you have to identify specifically what exactly this patient is suffering from. What is the Guyana situation suffering from that you have to have transition?
Well, I
transformation.
think key is vision and leadership. I'm not able to see where there's a vision to take the country, to bring it up even to today's standard at a global level. Because as you know, the world today is globally connected. You look at any level of commerce, whether it be finance, trade, transportation, you have a globally connected world. We cannot expect to have a nation exist in a vacuum anymore. The Guyanese construct right now hasn't progressed at all. Look at where our GDP is. When you look at GDP in a developing nation, I hear last time our Minister of Finance says 4 or 5% or so, and that's great.
That's growth.
They're
GDP growth.
Right, they're tooting their horns. But when you look in reality, for a nation, a developing nation, and you're an economist, you need to be around high single digits or double digits for a developing nation to be able to say that they are on a progressive path relative to GDP. When you look at the governance ideology, we have seen in the history of mankind the different form of governance. You have your communist ideology, socialist ideology, democratic ideology, and so on. And we've seen communism really has not catch on in the history of mankind. It sort of had its time, and it's dwindling. Look at the communist blocs right now. Social constructs, you see it mostly in developing nations and some of the European countries, and even those are now moving towards a more democratic form of government. The trajectory I talk about relative to Guyana is to move away from, on one hand, the communist construct, and the other hand, the socialist construct, to a more liberal democratic ideology. So that's the kind of transformation at the governance ideology level we're talking about.
Yeah, you mentioned about the gross domestic product of Guyana. 2013 statistics from the World Bank, which I have here, says that the per capita GDP was $3,847 US per person. That makes Guyana the third poorest country in the Western Hemisphere after Nicaragua and Haiti. So unfortunately, you mentioned earlier that we had the resources. Unfortunately, the people are not really moving beyond the lower rungs of the ladder.
Right, and the reason for that is, it goes back to when I talked about, you see the dichotomy? The opportunities for the population to get involved in growth, in economic activities are not there. They're selectively available for the most part. And couple that with the lack of true vocation education and the quality of our people, our skills set that the kids are coming out with, they're not able to compete for meaningful jobs. We need to get that economy into a trajectory where agriculture can be done smarter. Infrastructure building can be done smarter. Education needs to be done smarter. Technology needs to be part and parcel of the entire fabric of the nation. I would love to see kids in Guyana, when they get out of high school, as a challenge, certainly by university, to be able to write an app. Are they even close to things like that? I doubt it.
Dr. Samar, you're touching on some things there which I feel as an economist, you want probably me to say something on that, and I think I should. You're talking about the productivity of labor and the efficiency of labor. Those are economic terms. And you spoke about economic growth, and then you spoke about progress and development, and all those terminologies are economic terminologies, and I must take this opportunity to explain to our viewers what is the difference between these terminologies, so it can be very clear that economic growth is different from economic development, and both are different from economic progress. When we speak about economic growth, we are talking about the GDP, how much we produce for a particular period. We can see for an hour, for a day, for a week. Normally, they take it for the whole year, and then you divide that by the population, you get per capita. And like they got a per capita GDP for 2030, which is $3,800 or something dollars. That is how you talk about growth. Once that is increasing, it's economic growth. Now, economic development is actually the shift in the structure of the economy. What I mean by that, there are three structures. You have the primary structure, which is basically the agriculture base on the natural resources. And you have the secondary sector of the economy, which is manufacturing. Sometimes they classify mining as part of that, and so on, which involves some kind of a manufacturing process. So that is the secondary sector. The third sector is the tertiary services, which is basically like barbershops and whatever, brokerage, real estate services, mortgages, and so on, banking and all of that. So those are the three sectors. When you have the population that was involved, or the workforce that is involved in one sector, let's say the service sector, move to the industrial sector, the secondary sector, and then some from the secondary sector move to the primary sector, and you see that it's increasing, then that is economic development.
Absolutely.
Now, economic progress is completely a different kettle of fish. If, like in the first case, it's not linked to ethics of the society, ethical norms here. Growth and development, they're not tied strictly to any kind of ethics. So what is ethics? What is it talking about in economic ethics? Yes, you have ethical norms in terms of the distribution of the national income. If you don't have equitable distribution, it is not considered progress. So the other thing here is that you might have like inadequate or transparency in the government affairs in terms of issuance of contracts, not fairly issued. Like we don't have the procurement commission in Guyana. Contracts are being given and as people feel they should be given in offices, in government offices.
Right.
They give their friends and whatever. That is considered not progress. So you can have growth, you can have some development, but if you don't have the transparency and you do not have the ethical norms of adequate and equitable distribution, you can't say you have progress. Those are the three definitions of the terms that we want to clarify.
Well,
here.
Dr. Jadoopat, you did an excellent job in detailing the difference of what we're talking about. As you mentioned, without those taking out the cloud of lack of transparency and equal opportunity, neither growth nor development economic-wise can occur or will occur. One thing I would say that you mentioned that I have my perspective on is not so much redistribution of wealth. I would rather see a construct where we create opportunities through education to cause everyone to grow their wealth where the sky is the limit, as opposed to relying on government or governance to redistribute. Now, before we can get there, we will need to start off by rebalancing, redistributing, until we can get the masses truly be able to take advantage of true entrepreneurship and growth, where a new business owner can start from one shop and own 10 shops to 100 shops regionally or 1,000 shops globally.
Yes, so some policies have to be created here. And that brings us to our other question here, Dr. Samar. Let us start with your sector, the health sector. What are some of the healthcare policies that you, as a medical professional, as a person who is the chairman of the Department of Emergency Medicine with so many years of experience here in the United States, what would you recommend to improve the healthcare system in Guyana?
That's a good question, Rudy, and healthcare is close to my heart, as you know. But as you mentioned earlier, in order for a doctor to come up with a treatment plan, we have to make a diagnosis. And so when you look at what's happening right now in the current healthcare delivery system in Guyana, it has, by the most conservative of criticism, broken, fragmented it, and not able to provide basic needs to the population.
For example?
For example, you look at our current maternal death rate. Study came out from CARICOM just the other day. Period from 2009 to 2013, we actually went down from a maternal death rate. And we are among the lowest in the hemisphere, next to Haiti. In fact, on my way coming here today, I was listening to a program, a rally in Bartica, where a young lady was on the podium talking about how several members of her community died in the hospital or on their way to the hospital being misdiagnosed. Talked to a lot of families in Essequibo the other day where the hospital is discarding human remains outside without any type of real controls.
Human remains?
Yes. If there were from surgeries, you know, you have, let's say you had a surgery, a piece of organ removed or something like that. You know,
the body
the proper disposure of human remains, whether it be pathological specimens.
So if you cut out my finger for whatever reason, you're going to throw it in the ground?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
There's a proper way of disposing that cut finger, but there's hospitals in City Hospital, I'm messing up the name there, in Essequibo, they're finding, and this actually was in a newspaper recently, pictures of human remains in the back of the hospital in garbage dumps. Also, when you bring it down to the higher level, look at where the leaders of the nation get their health care from. There's a report that just came by the other day. I saw the current administration spent about 10 billion Guyanese dollars for about 963 of its close members of the government to have care outside the country. So the question I would ask any of the leaders, if they get sick or if their family gets sick, do they feel comfortable getting care in Guyana? Period. If the answer is yes, then we are misreading this whole healthcare delivery system. So that's the assessment what's happening. What needs to be done about it? I think you need to do 3 layers of stuff. One, you need to deal with your infrastructure. You need to have a program where you have access to its community. It's a little challenging, Guyana, because you have 83,000 square miles and the population is dispersed, not concentrated in one area, so there's some challenge logistically there. But you need to have access to the population wherever the population is. that access needs to be coordinated and managed regionally as well as centrally. You need to have a referral system of hospitals with specialty that's needed in the different areas. For example, if you have a center that has a population that has a lot of kidney disease, you may need to have dialysis specialization. You have a center that has a community population that has a lot of drug substance issues. You're going to need rehab services there. So you need to know what the need of your local community and have the physical capability of providing it. Paralleling all that, I think the healthcare givers themselves, talking about doctors, nurses, technicians, and alike, who are providing the care to the population, in my estimation, needs to do, a couple of things needs to happen there. You need to get people trained better, not to say anything really bad about current training or prior training of doctors and nurses, but they're not really up to standards for modern day society. I'll be honest with you.
They must be like.
They need to be trained properly, continuous education. They need to be compensated properly. Right now, the compensation for any individuals in service, whether it be physicians, healthcare workers, police, and such, are dismal. So you're not going to get the service provided to the population because Guyana is, for the most part, a single-payer system. The government pays the healthcare workers. And there's a small private sector there, if you will. And it needs also to be managed properly. One of the reasons I did training in management while I was in healthcare, you realize that providing healthcare is one thing, managing it is another thing. So if you're not able to manage what you have, both in terms of physical infrastructure and personal infrastructure and training, you're going to the delivery is not going to be there. The third thing I think, while we're doing that in country, that I think is critically important, given where we are in today's world, today's expertise in healthcare, and today's technology, I would like to see Guyana connect in a real way to institutions outside the country that are global in their delivery of care, such as the Mayo Clinic. We all know in the United States, the Mayo Clinic is a healthcare institution that delivers probably the best care to its patient worldwide. And it does so in a model that's efficient and it's coordinated. It allows for local control, central coordination, not central control. And it has the prescription, it has the model where it is being replicated not only in different states, but outside international communities as well. Similar for a system like Mount Sinai, has that type of global outreach in their healthcare delivery now. So we have the ability. I would love to see Guyana be part of one of the global communities in one of these global systems, if you will. It's doable. You need to have the political will and the ability to help connect them. Political will.
So you think the coalition that you support, are you part of it? You're the chairman of the AFC here in the United States, and the elections coming up. You think the political will can be acquired in the upcoming elections?
I think the political will from the leaders that I know and met and talked with is there. What they're going to need is tremendous support around them to help get them there. Once you get into a position where you're not fighting the other guy per se, spending your valuable time, resource, and energy fighting the other guy, rather now you're looking towards working with the other guy, and not only the other guy from inside the country, but outside the country. The diaspora has a tremendous role to play, in my view, not in my view, but the views of the leaders of the coalition, where they can help bring these expertise, these personnel, the resource to have an integrated healthcare delivery system, not only in Guyana, but connected to the rest of the world. And this model doesn't go only for healthcare. It can be done in education. It can be done in modernization of plants. It can be done in infrastructure building. Let's say you want to reconfigure the irrigation system of the nation. The technology and the expertise is there. It's a matter of how you're able to bring it to bear to serve the needs there, because you have several organizations and governments and businesses that has expertise to have it done.
Dr. Samar, I notice, or from my research, I can conclude that the type of racial, ethnic problems faced in Guyana and the polarization of the political parties along racial lines actually impact the productivity and efficiency in Guyana. Do you think the coalition would be able to change that? Let me explain what I really want to say here in more simpler terms. The PNC was in power for a long period, 28 years, and during that period, the PPP supporters in the workforce tend to have adopted an attitude of don't care a damn because PNC is in power. We don't want them. So we are going to work, yes, but without any enthusiasm to work and to perform to the best of our abilities. I'm talking about this PPP supporters at that time.
Sure.
When the PPPs came to power in '92 and they're in power right now, it's the opposite. The PNC supporters in the labor force are thinking, what the hell should I support those guys? They don't think about us. They discriminate against us. They're thinking about their own Indian people, the majority of their supporters. They're not thinking about us. So they go to work in the same way, don't care a damn. So what you find happening in the workforce is that one set is working and the other set is trying to pull it down. So you have economic stagnation due to that kind of approach. And the same thing happens all the time. For all these years, so Guyana's economic stagnation is basically as a result of this lack of increased productivity of labor and efficiency, because everything is linked to political division. Now, the coalition in power, do you think there is a potential for any kind of increase of the productivity of labor and efficiency?
Well, Rudy, you hit on something that's central to what's been plaguing that nation since these two political dinosaurs, I call them, been in power. Well, one for 28 years, the other one for 23 years. You pick your sequence. See, in those constructs, what was happening, the people didn't have a choice. There's only two. One that looked like you and I, and the other guy who doesn't look like you and I. So when the PPP was in power, it catered to its constituency. Essentially, by and large, neglected the other races. Similarly, when the PNC was in power, it catered to its constituency, not paying attention to the other. So it was, nobody wins there. Only whoever wins only half, or wins over half. And so you'll never get progress in that construct. This is the first time, I think, in the nation's history where you're not going to have an us versus them anymore, that guy versus that guy. You're going to have a we versus those who don't want to join.
So that can lead to doubling up on the productivity of labor.
Absolutely. And when you look at this, some specific models of governance here, it's going to be stakeholders from all walks of life, from all industries, civic society, different political parties. I mentioned earlier, the coalition is interested in having competent, uncorrupt PPP supporters to join the government. So it's an inclusionary prospect that's designed to cater for the needs of all Guyanese, not just any segment of it.
Dr. Rohan Somar, it was a pleasure having you here in our program today. I'm sure our viewers really enjoyed all the things that you had to explain to them. And we're coming towards the end of our interview, sir. Now you have the opportunity to look our viewers in the eye, so to speak.
Now before I do that, let me wipe my eyes because
and you might be able
it's staring.
You will be able to tell them from your perspective what your recommendations are, what you expect to happen in the upcoming elections. Probably you would want to also share a few secrets of your own to the Guyanese diaspora here and to all our viewers. And you might also want to use this opportunity to send a message back to the Guyanese population who will be watching this program as well on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook.
Well, thank you, Rudy, for first of all having me here and having this discussion about what's happening in Guyana. My message is to two audiences primarily. One, the Guyanese diaspora, and two, to our brothers and sisters back home who are going to be voting come May 11th. To the members of the diaspora, we know that there are more of us outside of Guyana than is in Guyana right now. We all know that we care for what's happening in the country. We spend a lot of time, resource, energy in all different ways to support what's our friends and our family back home. And we've been doing that. We've been doing that since we left the nation, and we can continue to do it till the cows come home. I think this time, more than any time, provides the opportunity to really change the current trajectory of that nation. This coalition, as I've discussed earlier, I think is the right time. It has the right leaders in place with the right ideology to help transform that nation. They have also recognized that the diaspora will play a key role in the transformation of the nation, not just for what we're doing currently, but how we can participate in several levels of the nation. So I'll ask you to take a serious look at the coalition. You can upload their manifesto at APNU-AFC.net. Look through it, and you will find there the program of how they intend to govern the nation. And that program is predicated on a couple of key things. One, openness, transparency, accountability, and inclusiveness so that everyone can have an opportunity. Second, to my diaspora colleagues, we are all looking and talking to the diaspora, not only in the US, but folks in Canada as well, to help we're looking to see some changes in the nation. I ask you to look at this, pick up the phone, call your friends and family back homes, and have them vote. Let them exercise their right to vote for things that are going to be meaningful to their lives and the future of their children's lives. And so we can all together join in transforming the nation. Second, to my brothers and sisters back home, as mentioned, there are more of us out here looking at what's happening. We are very interested in what's happening in Guyana. We want to help Guyana be on the right track. I'll remind you of the old saying, you can take a Guyanese out of Guyana, but you can't take Guyana out of a Guyanese. We're all displaced Guyanese here. And we want to come back and bring our resources and to help that nation move forward for your sake primarily. So I'll ask you, when you go into that voting booth on May 11th, take a deep breath and say and ask yourself, or rather think about what this election is all about. It's about you, it's about your children, it's about your grandchildren, and the future of the country. And reflect on one word that I always keep in my mind, and that is the word of Mahatma Gandhi, when he says, "Be the change you want to see." This is your moment. This is your time to participate in an exercise that will transform your lives and the lives of all the generations to come in Guyana. So I encourage you to go out and vote, and I would encourage you to vote for the coalition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rohan Somar, System Chairman of the Department of Emergency Medicine. Sir, it was a pleasure really having you on our program today, and we hope that you'll find time in future to come back. We wish you good luck in your good endeavors and hope that you'll be satisfied with the results of the elections.
I'm hoping so too. Thank you very much, Dr. Jadoopat, for having me. I look forward to coming back and having some fruitful discussion on any topics that we can engage in.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the program Inside Guyana. Our special guest, Dr. Rohan Samar, did elaborate on quite a few topics here. I'm sure you're going to digest that. On behalf of our cameraman, Ravi, and our producer, Prakash, I want to wish you all the best. Thanks for watching. Until next time, yours truly, Dr. Rudy Jadoopat.